for the world, for the whole world. And the relationship is good. But you remember everybody in the fake news where they were saying, he's going to get us into a nuclear war. He's going to get us into a nuclear war. And you know what gets you into nuclear wars? And you know what gets you into other wars? Weakness. Weakness.
Speaking of weakness, the president got America out of the weak Iran deal, where we paid them to lie to us about developing nukes. So here he's solving problems, leaving President Obama's foreign policy in tatters. Joining me now, Fox News contributor and 2012 Republican presidential candidate Herman Cain, and former senior advisor to Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Philippe Reines. All right,
hi, Jesse.
Philippe. I got your name right, I hope, on that one.
100%.
But I'm going to start with my man, Herman Cain. Mr. Cain, I mean, crying Chuck should be shedding tears of joy that American hostages were released. We didn't even have to trade any Gitmo terrorists for them like Barack Obama did.
President Trump nailed it when he said weakness gets us into wars. And the fact that this president is making so much progress on the diplomatic front with Kim Jong-un is driving liberals crazy, as you pointed out. Weakness isn't what this president believes in. He believes in negotiating from a position of strength, and this is what he's doing. He's delivering on his promises, and the Democrats hate it.
Peace through strength, Philippe. Isn't that what the president's doing instead of war due to weakness?
Well, I think you got a few things going on here. First off, if you look at the wars that I think are being referenced, particularly Iraq and Afghanistan, those were entered into by President Bush. President Obama did yeoman's work in terms of drawing down and bringing us into a better position.
Well, Hillary voted for the Iraq war, and then Obama
Sure.
lost the peace, and ISIS took over. But go ahead.
You take my point. I think on what's going on now with the Koreas and with Iran should be separated into three parts. First, it's terrific that 3 Americans are now back on American soil. They should never have been detained. I don't know anyone who's not happy about that. I do understand the point about let's not give too much credit to the guy who snatched them to giving them back. The last American he gave back, well, Otto Warmbier, basically died within days.
Right.
And this was the same host, so let's not get too carried away. In terms of
But no one's
Iran,
really just heaping praise on Little Rocket Man for returning the hostages. I think President Trump just said it was a sign of respect that he did this to lay the groundwork for the Singapore summit.
Well, but I'm old enough to remember that when Bill Clinton in 2009 went to North Korea and met with Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un's father, and brought home 2 American journalists who were being detained, and I don't remember any kind of huge outpouring of support or applause for that. And by the way, that's not what it's about, so that's fine. But in terms of the nuclear-free Korea, if President Trump can do that, everyone's for that. I mean, that is a terrific, terrific outcome. In terms of Iran, I think it's a little early to say.
Let's keep that on the table before we get to Iran. Philippe, one of the most sensible Democrats around. That's why we have him on the show, Mr. Cain. But it is funny hearing the left criticize President Trump's foreign policy dealings when they are the party that's given us bad deal after bad deal, from NAFTA to the Bergdahl trade to the Iran deal, to come in at the end and say Trump doesn't know what he's doing, he's getting played. Well, that party's been played for decades.
Yes, and Philippe, let's not shift the subject to Bill Clinton or some other war. This concerns North Korea. And what some of the Democrats want to do is to shift the subject, as I say, ignore the fact that there's real progress here. That's what this president is doing. Secondly, as a businessman, he has been successful because he was willing to walk away from the table. I know that North Korea has gone back on some of its promises in the past. Well, there's a new sheriff in town. His name is President Donald J. Trump. And Chuck Schumer and Brenner and all of the others ought to be either cheering him on and hope that he's successful, or they should just shut up, because that can do more damage than anything else.
Philippe, yeah, I think the reference is to John Kerry, who was, when he was negotiating the Iran deal, refused to leave the table because it was up against a time constraint, and the legacy play was very much in his mind, very much in Barack Obama's mind. And this president, I think, is going to keep John Kerry and his little bicycle far away from Singapore.
Well, I guess, again, I think it's two different things. On the Koreas, I think every American, including Democrats and everyone in Congress, are first and foremost thinking about the tens of thousands of American soldiers who are in South Korea, including on the DMZ. So that people want them to be safe and ideally come home at some point. So I don't think anyone is rooting against the president. People just want to make sure that that can happen. In terms of Iran and John Kerry, I think it might be a little early to be celebrating. It's easy to tear up an agreement. We don't know how it's going to go. I know the people who actually negotiated that agreement, and I trust their judgment, and they and our allies and a lot of smart people who may be wrong, but they feel that this is a real problem.
Oh, here's one of the reasons, Philippe and Herman, that I believe that President Trump is going to be successful by getting out of this Iran deal. You guys remember George Costanza from Seinfeld during that moment in the diner when he says, every instinct I've ever had has been wrong in my life, and here's where I am. I'm going to do the opposite. Let's roll that tape.
Tuna on toast, coleslaw, cup of coffee.
Yeah. No, wait a minute. I always have tuna on toast. Nothing's ever worked out for me with tuna on toast. I want the complete opposite of tuna on toast. Chicken salad on rye, untoasted, with a side of potato salad and a cup of tea.
So, Herman, I think by Donald Trump doing the opposite of Barack Obama in foreign and domestic policy, that could work out pretty well.
It could work out pretty well. And Trump's style, which many of the liberals and the Democrats want to ignore, is to get the person or the country to the table. If nothing else comes out of the Singapore summit, he at least has him to the table. I'm not saying that others weren't able to do that, but I believe Kim Jong-un knows he's dealing with a totally different person, where if he does not do some of the things that the world wants, it's not just the United States and Donald Trump. If he doesn't do some things to enhance peace by giving up the nuclear program, then I believe he believes that Donald Trump is not to be messed with. All you got to do is look at some of the other decisions that he has made and kept his word.
All right, guys, I got to run, and next time, Philippe.
It's an invalid Seinfeld reference. George was saying that I, George, am wrong, not you, Jerry, are wrong.
You know what? I thought it made perfect sense.
I know you did.
Now you're never allowed back on the show,
The facts are important with Seinfeld.
That was an alternative fact. Guys, thank you very much.
Bye.
We may know now why the left is in hysterics over President Trump's big wins. He was never supposed to be president. Shocking new allegations could be the latest proof. The FBI may have had a spy infiltrate the Trump campaign.